Hello and welcome to our program Faith Matters. In this program we bring in three local religious leaders to talk about topics of interest to the larger community. I'd like to welcome our guest, Mohammed Ziaullah from the Islamic Center of Rockland County, Rabbi Paul Curlin from Temple Shir Shalom, and Reverend Richard Hasselback from the Clarkstown Reformed Church. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Nice to be here.
It's absolutely wonderful to be here.
Okay, so our first topic is really looking at the result of the decline in religious affiliation and practice and some of the implications both nationally and locally for us as a nation and in our local community. So there's a great Pew Research Center study that came out in 2021. The Pew Research Center does some wonderful data and research, and every year they do a variety of national studies. And according to the Pew Research study in 2021, the secularizing shifts are evident in American society, and they show no signs of decline. We've seen a steady decline in religious observance and practice and a growth in secularization. The religious unaffiliated population is growing. It's actually 6 percentage points higher than it was just 5 years ago, and 10% higher than it was 10 years ago. In fact, the religious population in the United States, while it's still fairly large, with 63% of the population saying they're Christian, that's down from 75% just a decade earlier. And when people are asked what their religion is, 29%, almost 3 in 10 people, describe themselves as either atheist, agnostic, or nones, meaning none of the above. They're not affiliated with any organized religion. And this is a trend that seems to have been going on for a number of years. So my first question to our panel is, what do you think well, first of all, do you agree with these statistics? Do you think there's a growing secularization here in the United States and in our local community? Why don't we start with you, Reverend Hasselback?
Absolutely, you can't argue with the numbers. And they would explain, I think, at least my experience at the Clarkstown Reformed Church and in churches that I've been associated with throughout the years. There's less and less an interest in being a member of an organized religious congregation. And I think the implication of that for folks like me is to realize that as membership and as an interest even in religion declines, it creates a target-rich environment for us, because now we have more people that we need to reach out to. It's not like the old days where you could rely on society to shore up religious attendance or religious practice. We have an opportunity to present the very best in religious faith to the people in our communities who are not already members of religious congregations, whether they be Christians or Jews or Muslims. I think our duty even is to reach out to them and to show them the tremendous value in faith, the value that faith creates in giving people hope, giving people a reason not only to believe that the world is a good place, but a reason to believe that their own inner instincts to be kind are rooted in the very nature of God's self.
So, Rabbi?
Well, I want to thank Rich for stealing so much of what I was going to say. Mohammed, good luck after I speak. But most definitely, we've seen the numbers. Now, within the individual congregation, you may not notice, because throughout history, sometimes demographics have an impact on an individual congregation. And there have been demographics locally, but we've seen the numbers around the whole country. And where I agree with you most definitely is when religion is done in a quality way. Mm-hmm. And it's not always done in a quality way. I always have this discussion about sometimes organized religion doesn't always reflect the religion as perfectly as you would want it to. Mm-hmm. I had a a man come up to me a number of years ago and said, gee, I really loved what you had to say. You know, if I were to join a synagogue, I would join your synagogue, but I'm not into organized religion. So I said, you'll love us. We're as disorganized as they come.
Yeah, that's right.
But by the way, that was a joke. Please don't take it seriously. But I think when it's done well, and what you said, Rich, is that this should inspire us to work even harder.
That's right.
And not to get lazy with the way that we present religion. Because we all three agree that religion has a major quality impact on the greater society.
I don't mean to step on Mohammed's, but we can't sit around waiting for people to come to us anymore. We have to get out in the communities. We have to show that we care about the people out there in our communities. And by doing that, we also show the value of faith-based life.
Right. I always say that very often a lot of the things that religion should be teaching, if you're not connected, then you become the out of sight, out of mind type of person. And therefore, you don't have those regular reminders to connect to the better part of yourself. That does not mean that a secular person cannot be kind and we'll just use the word wonderful, but I think that religion elevates us so much quicker, and they have safety nets to make sure we don't fall too far away from the kind of quality person that we all should have within us that we need to bring out.
Mohammed, your perspective on this?
Yes, you know, these statistics, you know, like, yeah, we believe in that, but we have a little different view according to our belief, you know, like a 5 times prayer in the masjid. Okay, people are coming and we meet them over there. We encourage them to bring their families or bring other friends. Yes, there is some decline, but you know, usually like on Fridays you see the masjid is full, you know, and on Eid days we don't have space in the masjid. Yeah, we encourage people. Every Friday we have a sermon. In sermon, you know, the imam give people, you know, to look for you know, what you can lean on when you are in trouble, when you are in you know, down, when you don't have a job, you don't blame, you know, things like that. So there is something to look forward to, lean on. That's the religion. Yeah. And if you believe in the religion, and definitely it will elevate you to the higher level, where not only the George is looking to me or police is looking to me, but is a God is looking to me. You know, I don't do the wrong things because of the law, because of the God. You know, you got to build that thing into your daily life.
Absolutely, and Mohammed, you're right. At Eid just this year, going over to the mosque,
yeah,
I would say it was not at pre-pandemic levels, but it was close. I was heartened to see how many folks had actually come back to be in person for that celebration just a few months ago. And so I would say, from my perspective, having gone on Eid, you know, pretty much every year, that the numbers were closer to pre-pandemic levels. Probably just not there yet, but closer for that, which I think was good news. You know, one of the other interesting findings in the Pew Research study focused in on the number of people that actually, when surveyed, say that religion is very important. They respond very important within their lives. And between 2017 and 2019, that number dropped precipitously. It's actually down. 41% of all Americans that responded to the survey said religion was important or very important within their lives. And that's down significantly. It's for the first time since they've been doing these surveys, it's under 50%, which, again, it just indicates another trend within secularization. The other thing that was interesting was prayer. The number of folks that say that they pray was interesting. I think the numbers are higher. There's still a majority of people that say they pray at least once or twice a month. But those numbers are also going down. So there's certainly some implications, you know, for us to kind of take a look at with this. One of which was yet another study and survey that recently came out. This was published in the Wall Street Journal earlier this past summer, and really looked at the philanthropy and giving, and kind of a very interesting finding that a lot of people are trying to grapple with, not just in the religion space, but frankly in the philanthropy space. And the article's entitled "America's Coming Charity Deficit," and really looks at the number of people that are committed to giving. And some of the studies that were done as part of this, which became this opinion piece, were that people who are religiously affiliated are more likely to make a charitable donation of any kind, whether to a religious congregation or to another type of charitable organization. So 62% of religious households give to charity, compared with 46% non-religious. And so there's a real divide there. It also went on to talk about that the wealthiest 1.4% of the population in the country were responsible for 86% of the charitable giving. And then it really goes on to the generational divide, and how the older generations are more religiously connected, more religiously affiliated than the younger generations. And as these younger generations age, what is going to be the implication? Because they're giving not just to religious organizations less, but they're giving to everybody less. And it's really something has to be done to try and tap in, I guess, to people's better nature, or angels of their better nature, to see about the connectivity with giving. So do you think it's important belonging to a house of worship or having a faith structure to encourage charitable giving? Do you agree with the perspective of this article? Reverend Haspel.
Absolutely. I think people of faith are more inclined to be generous because they have a rationale for the generosity. The generosity of the believer is rooted in Torah, in the Gospels, in the writings of the prophet, and those writings say we need to be kind to each other. When you love God, you express that love by loving your neighbors, and even by loving your enemies. So the rationale for charitable behavior and charitable giving in a Christian Jewish the context of belief really is that we are serving our God by serving the divine life within each person that we encounter. And as we do that, I mean, maybe one of the blessings of the decline of churches is that it will force us to work together instead of working in silos. And as we work together, as Jews work with Christians and Muslims, we begin to experience what Rabbi Sachs called the home we build together, the coming together of different people who find love and affiliation with each other because of their commitment to a common good within the society that they live in. And I think that's a great gift that religion can give to the communities. As it does that, I believe the religious adherents, people will see more value in religion. If all religion is sitting around on a pew for an hour or so once a week and listening to somebody like me drone on, I get why people probably don't think that's a great way to spend a beautiful day that you could otherwise be golfing. But if religion does what religion must do, and that is reconnect us to the source of our life. The word religion is etymologically is religare, to reconnect. And what do we reconnect to? We reconnect to the source of life. We connect to the wisdom that lies at the heart of things, which I would call God. And then as we do that, we connect through that connection with God to one another in a profoundly deep and meaningful way. And that becomes the source of our generosity, which isn't just do-goodism. And I think the more religions can connect prayer, spirituality, meditation, worship, and charity as a whole piece, the more people will become alive to their love for their communities.
Rabbi?
Can I have the next half hour to discuss this? Judaism believes that while there are all the rituals are supposed to inspire us towards action. So just expressing prayer alone is not enough. You're supposed to put those words, they're supposed to inspire you to put your words into action. There's actually a nice custom, not on the Sabbath day, not on the holidays. We don't go around with the basket like in the churches, but on weekday when we pray, very often after you say the central prayer, you can go up and you can put some money into a charity box. We call it the tzedakah box. And so that you turn immediately those prayers into action. So just doing the rituals is not enough. And that's got to be the message that comes across, that whole action element. I wrote down a few other things that when we make that connection to God, which is the inspiration for us, one of the teachings in Judaism is you cannot say that you love God unless you first love your fellow human being. And therefore, you're allowed to drop certain commandments in order to take care of life of others. Even if you're supposed to not do this and not do that and not do that, those get pushed aside when somebody is in great need. And those are the things we're supposed to look towards. There's another thing I wanted to teach within my half hour that you're giving me, which is that we have the word charity, but in Judaism we don't use the word charity, we use the word tzedakah. And tzedakah comes from the word tzedek, which means righteousness. And it's not, if you look up charity, I looked it up the other day, charity is related to being motivated to give. All those good commercials on TV that motivate you to call in and to give to worthy causes. But in Judaism, you're supposed to do the right thing. And therefore, even if you're not in the right mood, guess what? You're still supposed to do that. And if you don't do it, you're on the wrong path. We'll put it in those simple terms. And therefore, you don't have that choice. And you don't wait for being in the right mood. You say right away that X percent of my income, X percent of what I own needs to be shared with others that need that help, because we are all each other's keepers, we'll put it that way.
Yeah.
And I guess I won't use up 30 minutes.
So Mohammed, the Prophet was so clear in the pillars and in the practices, and was the whole concept of zakat and charity. Maybe you could speak to that as well. I think it's a natural segue in this segment.
Right. The Islamic teaching is that charity is very important, but on top of that, like you say, sadaqah, that's also, there is another way of giving. But our Prophet has command us that you must give 2.5% of your entire wealth, whatever you have after 1 year. Whatever you save in 1 year, you must give. Not only that, women have these ornaments, all the gold. You calculate the value of the gold, and you give 2.5% of that too. It is mandatory. It is not like you just give it or not. No. At one time, one of the Khalifa was after the death of Prophet, peace be upon him, he asked, people say, oh, maybe we can postpone because we have set back, our Prophet is gone. Now he said, no. Zakat I will not, because this is a commandment from Allah, from the God, that you must give this 2.5% every year of your saving. Calculate a month, whatever the month you have, and you at that time you calculate 2.5% of that must go to the needy people, must go to the charity, must go to the people who need it. And on top of that, there is a sadaqah. Sadaqah is on your own. You make an intention that you are in trouble. You are, oh God, please help me out. I'm giving this money, as you have ordered a sadaqah. That is not mandatory, but it is, it is good for the individual who give the sadaqah. So, Islam is really emphasized on this charity and giving more than anything else. Like for example, if your neighbor is sleeping hungry and you have a full meal, you will be asked why your neighbor was sleeping, without food and you have full meal. That is the extent, the Islam goes to. At one time, people thinking maybe the neighbors will be part of our wealth. Prophet will maybe made it because he emphasized so much on the this thing that nobody should be sleeping without food while you have enough food. So you must share. So that's and we see all the time. Latest example of in Pakistan when we have a flood, there people has donated millions and millions of dollars, not only from here because here you are well to do. Even in Pakistan, people who are don't have that much money, they are donating because religion emphasize on this thing that you must donate, and because this is not your money. Whatever the money is here, you are a trustee. You are trustees, and you're gonna be answered for that day of judgment.
Right.
So that is not your money. So you must allocate money according to the belief and teaching, and this is not your money, and you have to give who it belongs to.
Can I add, there's a wonderful overlap that we all have in terms of the religious approach. And it probably is what you just taught. The teaching in Judaism is that even the poor have to give tzedakah.
Yeah.
Because there's always somebody worse off than you.
And it not to be like a huge money. If you are eating dates, you have 10 dates, maybe give 5 dates to sadaqah. 2
Right.
dates to sadaqah. Sadaqah is not like I don't have the money. No, whatever you have $1, give it 20 cents.
Right.
And this is just because, Paul, you said this very beautifully. This isn't because you feel good. This is because this is the way we honor God, and this is our obligation.
Yes.
So the charitable giving or the agapic giving isn't sort of I feel good. Let me feel better. I'll give this away. It is, I have a responsibility to my brothers and sisters, to my neighbors, to the people in my community, to make sure that their lives are okay. And to do that, we can't sit around waiting for them to come to us and ask. We have to have an eye, a gracious eye, that looks around our community and say, where is the need and how can I address it?
And we should be thankful to people who are accepting this sadaqah. Not like we are proud to we are giving. No, we are thankful that he or she accepted this sadaqah from us.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great point, but we need to take a break. And when we come back, we'll discuss some of the implications of giving in the local level as well. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
In every family, small conversations can make a big impact. I grew up on tour with my parents. Kind of different, but we bonded over music and we talked. Honest conversations, like when my dad shared his experiences as an alcoholic. Your honesty gave me a sense of integrity that I wanted in my own life.
And I wanted you to know, from someone who's been in recovery more than 30 years now, that hard work is what creates success, not alcohol or other drugs, in whatever you do.
Talk, they hear you.
Email from school about the incident today.
Scary.
Teachers like me, parents, we don't always know as much as you guys do about what's going on with other kids.
Half the time, it's rumors.
Yeah, but if you're ever concerned about a friend who's having trouble with alcohol, prescription drugs, anything, you need to tell an adult, someone you know and trust. That can be hard, but speaking up about a problem is what helping a friend is all about.
Welcome back. I want to welcome our guests back, and after the break, let's now talk about the implications. We're seeing this decline in religion in terms of practices, a rise in secularism in our country, And really the concern with the commitment to charitable giving is certainly higher in religiously affiliated homes than in unaffiliated homes. And so I ask, what are you seeing on the local level? And why don't we start with Rabbi Kurlan?
So it's not always easy to see exactly what's going on within, let's say, my congregation, because many people will do their acts of tzedakah, of charity, privately. You know, there's so many places that will send them an envelope and say, please respond. And I've done a number of funerals in which the children will say, oh my goodness, my mother never turned down any of those envelopes that came in the mail, which I'm sure other charities were upset they never learned about that, because it would have sent her more information. Like I said earlier, we don't send around the basket to collect money, so we don't see it in terms of on the Sabbath, you know, are we getting less money, things like that, or, you know, to do the work we want to do. And by the way, money that we collect as a congregation is not just to pay the electric bills, but it's to be able to do more of those mitzvot, more of those commandments in the greater world as well. But certainly the last few years, when people have lost their jobs, you expect that they're not going to be able, even their 2.5% is not going to be as great as their 2.5%, you know, a few years back. But I'm not sure exactly if I have any other information in terms of how it's really playing out. What I do know, and I wanted to say this before, is that, again, we are the ones that constantly remind people to be connected to their greater selves, so that I think we do a better job, as the survey showed, to inspire people to reach a little deeper and to make sure that they're looking on for others, that even if they are not doing as well as they did a few years ago, there are other people that are doing much worse. And I guess that's the only input I can put to that question right now.
Mohammed?
Yes, you know, that charity we have seen you will be surprised that maybe, you know, like a 15% to 20% increase. Every week we collect on the Friday prayers, so we have noticed that you know, the collection went up, you know, and because we depend on the collection, as you know, that we don't have any other means other than the donations. And you can imagine that this beautiful mosque we built on Mountain View Avenue is all on charity, all on donation. We haven't received a penny from any, you know, any government like Saudi Arabia or Kuwait or Qatar or any local people, you know, donated that. And we encourage them. We call them meetings. We go through their houses. We have a, you know, congregation, a small congregation, and show them the importance of the mosque in the area, you know, where you can come pray. Not only pray, but you can, you know, share your problems, your miseries, your whatever, you know, and your happiness, and together we cope with this, whatever the issue you have. So we encourage people. So we have seen increase in even in the membership, you know, in our congregation. And we, as I said before, you know, Islam is really emphasized on charity a lot more, you know, that you must give. Its clear example is that this is not our money. Whatever the money I earn, this is not your money. The God gave you, you are trustee of the money, and you better be careful. In the day of judgment, you will be answered for that. So people, and every Friday in the congregation, you know, we emphasize that, you know, on the giving, and giving not only to the Islamic Center, but sadaqah, to giving to the poor people, needy people, whoever are needy. It doesn't matter they are Muslim or not Muslim, but they are needy. We got to help them, and people do that, you know.
Right. In fact, as one of the 5 pillars in Islam, zakat, it really it almost becomes like a social security in Islamic countries, correct?
Yeah.
You know, because those charitable organizations are really helping to support the poor, because it's an expectation within those countries of everyone. Reverend, how about in your corner of the world?
My experience at Clarkstown Reformed Church is, first of all, we are not shrinking, we're growing. Now it's not exponential growth, but we have new people every week, and the people who are coming are staying. We're beginning to see more children, more young families, and I think they're coming because they see a value not only in what we teach, because we do try to stick to the basics of faith, of prayer and the message of Christ and the Gospels, but they also see that we don't let it stop in the church. We encourage people to have a robust spiritual life at home, but also to care for each other. And we do have a lot of folks who have developed deep friendships at our church, and they care about each other. And if one of them is in trouble, someone else will step up and help out. And I think, much like as Mohammed said earlier, the helping isn't a self-righteous helping. It's a privilege to help people, and an honor to be allowed to help. As a church, at church, as you know, because you've helped us a lot with turkeys, we have a yearly Thanksgiving dinner for anyone with no place else to go. You don't have to be poor. You don't have to be rich. I mean, there's no cost to it at all. People who are lonely can come to us and on Thanksgiving Day, and they'll have dinner like they would have at Grandma's house. And that's become one of the favorite events at our church. People love to help out. We're already planning it for this Thanksgiving. But it's an outreach to the community, to let the community know that this is a church that cares about others. You don't have to be a Christian. You don't have to be, certainly don't have to be a member of our church. All you have to be is a person with no place else to go, and you're welcome at our table. As a church, our congregational giving is robust for a small-ish church, because people see us using the resources they give us, not just on painting the church and fixing the roofs and things like that. They see us helping people with their rent, helping people with their food bills, helping people with their doctor's bills or their dentist bills. Because if somebody can't afford, we have a couple of youngish women who just needed dental. There was one young woman who, when she ate, would cover her mouth because she was so ashamed of her smile. And we got her to a dentist, and we're working on that. And I don't care what the cost is. This is something that we need to do for someone who needed the help and couldn't afford to do it themselves.
I want to add that Rich and I are on the board of Helping Hands, which has always dealt with issues of the homeless in Rockland County, and there have been a significant number of people that have been homeless. Many churches and synagogues were the safe havens for a number of years.
That's right.
Where we would house the homeless in our buildings, and they would sleep overnight, and we would feed them. There was a delightful, and I heard this from other members of the board, a delightful problem that sometimes you had too many people volunteering to come down and to prepare the food. There wasn't enough room in the kitchen. There wasn't enough room in the building, and that certainly happened in our congregation as well. And there was something lost when all of a sudden the warming center was opened in the county through a mandate from the state, that we no longer had that direct contact with the love that we were sharing and the interaction that we were having. And that's always meaningful. When you do see, and I think we've said this a little earlier, when you see the impact of your action, it inspires you to even more action, because there's that goodness that is reinforced inside of you, knowing that you're on the good side, we'll put it that way.
And religious organizations, churches, synagogues, mosques, do the works of kindness better than state agencies.
That's why most of the members of our board of Helping Hands are significant parts of their churches,
Yes,
synagogues, etc.
Yeah.
And it's very accurate. And Helping Hands, I had done some volunteer work with that, and it's exactly what you said. I used to drive for them because you would volunteer, you go to the designated pickup part, but now there's the county warming center and it's a bus. So
Yeah.
it's so there are some opportunities, I think, for service there were literally hundreds and hundreds of people locally that were involved in that endeavor. It's kind of lost. So, I'm happy that the services have improved, but it was
With
an
everything you
opportunity.
gain, there's something you lose.
And what you lost, I think, was that sense of each person who came and needed the help of helping hands. Each person was treated as an individual and a valued person.
Right.
And that's not always the case when you have an organization, an entity that's,
It's no longer
Say so.
the homeless, for example. It's
Yeah.
the individual names of the
That is
individual
correct.
people.
That is correct.
There's a face you see rather than just this blurry image of who the homeless are.
Mm-hmm.
And you see the individual human being.
So, like all good things must come to an end. We're going to have to end this segment and pivot into our motivational moments. But fascinating, discussion and topic about the implications of a growing secularism. If I had to sum up, and maybe in a very short response from each of you, if I had to sum up, yes, we're seeing growing secularization locally. There is a concern with charitable giving that's going to be related to that nationally, but we're not seeing it locally, right? We're seeing the growth of the secularization and the concerns about charitable giving. Maybe it's more on a national level. It doesn't seem to have permeated into our local community as much yet. Correct? Would you agree with that?
I would, yeah.
At least for your congregations, right?
Yes, and I think the growing secularism in society may, in fact, in an odd way, be good for houses of worship and for religion in general, because it requires us to be who we are, to create pathways for people to travel into really the heart of life and into the presence of God, however you define God. And we need to be who we are, and that means go back to our roots. And as we do that, I think we begin to prosper again.
Very well. So we're going to move into our motivational moments, and this is an opportunity for each of our guests to give a motivational message, of just a minute or so. And I think we'll start with Rabbi Kurlan, then we'll move to Mohammed, and we'll wrap it up with Reverend Hasselbeck.
So I chose a story about giving. And what we'd like to think spiritually is the great reward for living the good life. I mean, the good life meaning the quality life of caring, etc. It's a very wealthy woman who dies and goes to heaven. And what happens is she goes up and she's shown around in heaven everything, and they go by this very beautiful mansion. She says, what a beautiful building. Whose building is that? She says, see the man over there? He's working in his garden. She said, oh my goodness, he was my gardener. And if he was my gardener and he worked for me, I can only imagine the kind of house I'm going to be living in if he has that gorgeous mansion. They said, well, let me take you to your house. And they go down, and there's a little house, no mansion or so. But guess what? There's a window or two missing. One of the doors is not on the house, and there's still holes in the roof. She said, I don't understand. Why is this my home? And they said, this is all the material you sent to us. Meaning your actions on earth sent the material ahead for your eternal life up in heaven. Yeah. And the spiritual message is that we like to think that what we do, the actions we do, not only impact on people now, but they go on for eternity because they continue to motivate others in the future as well to follow in your footsteps. And if you don't have the right footsteps, then you don't have the right motivation for others.
Rabbi, thank you. Mohammed?
Yes, I will give you one occasion. Our Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he always emphasized in giving. You must give. So one day he was sitting in the mosque, in the Masjid al-Nabawi in Medina, and he announced that we need donation from everybody, whoever can bring whatever they have to bring, and they bring. So he has 4 close companions, okay, as Abu Bakr, Umar, Usman, and Ali. So they always try to compete each other in giving. So that day, Umar, Khalifa Umar, thought that I will beat everybody, and I will beat especially Umar. Umar said, I will beat Abu Bakr, because he was a close companion of Prophet Muhammad. So when he bring everything, he bring in and dump into the masjid, and then Prophet asked Umar, what you bring? He said, I bring half of what I have, half I left for my family, and half I bring for donation, as you ask us to do. Then he says, okay, Abu Bakr, what you bring? He said, I bring everything what I have. Prophet asked, what did you leave for your family? He said, God, I left my Allah for them. So in other words, this was open to motivate people, everybody. But there are other ways. He emphasized you can hide and give, and you can openly say and give, both ways. And both are accepted. So this is the encouragement from Prophet, peace be upon him. You must give whatever you have, and you will be never go bankrupt.
Well, thank you for that. Reverend?
Very briefly, on 9/11, I worked in Lower Manhattan, and I remember being on the Henry Hudson Bridge, paying the toll, and the woman at the toll booth said, "I hope you're not going downtown." I said, "Yeah, I work down in Tribeca." She said, "Well, don't even try to get down there. A plane just went into the World Trade Center." I said to her, thinking that this is a dentist flying a Beechcraft Baron, I said, she said, no, it was an airliner. And we're just hearing that the second went into the building. Don't even try to get down there. And I didn't. I turned around and went home. But I went back to the area shortly, probably within a week and a half of the attack. And the thing that struck me most was all the signs. The signs had pictures of happy people, because who takes pictures of sad people, right? And they said things like, and they were hand done, run off at Staples or something. And they said, if you see my dad, his name is, and fill in your name, please let me know. And there was a contact information. There were pictures of older men, younger men, beautiful women, young people in the prime of life. And they were all being searched for by people who loved them. And those people, some of them are still waiting for word, because more than 1,000 people never heard what happened to their loved ones. But what I'd like to stress is what matters most is relationship. What matters most is love and compassion and kindness. We only live now. We don't live in the past, can't get back there. We don't live in the future, not here yet. We live now. How do we spend now? Are we spending it making money or focused on getting the corner office or the next big thing? Because if we are, we're missing the value of this moment in which we can find people to love and appreciate and care about. Every one of those people who put up those signs, they would have given anything they had for one moment with their loved one, for one last opportunity to say, I love you, I care about you, and you're so important to me. we have those opportunities now because for most of us, our loved ones are still with us. We just can't waste the time ignoring each other so that we can pursue lesser things. Take the time to love the people you love. It's the best way to use that time.
Well, thank you all for those wonderful motivational moments. I want to thank my wonderful guest, Mohammed Ziaullah from the Islamic Center of Rockland County, Rabbi Paul Curlin from Congregation Shir Shalom, and Reverend Richard Hasselback from the Clarkstown Reformed Church. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting
thank
us.
you.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
And then, as we say in the business, amen.
Until next time, I'm Supervisor George Homan, and thanks for joining us on this episode of Faith Matters.